Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. The old and the new coming up as we hear from a couple of veteran Big Ten basketball coaches and one just starting his career in College Park in Maryland, first-year head man Buzz Williams. But we do begin with our big story focused on the larger-than-life expectations surrounding Purdue basketball heading into the 2025-26 season. 2 years removed from a Final Four showing, Boilers return a handful of players who were on that team, including All-American point guard Braden Smith, big man Trey KaufmanRen, and dead-eye shooter Fletcher Loyer, who are joined by notable incoming transfers Oscar Clough and Liam Murphy. So good, in fact, that Andy Katz has the Boilermakers #1 in his Power 37 power rankings. Handful of other Big Ten teams are inside the top 25, but there is no question that the Boilermakers, led by Matt Painter, will be the heavy favorites heading into this Big Ten Conference season.
I think it's one of those things that you work so hard, and then when you put yourself in that position, it's great for the exposure, it's great for recruiting, but then nothing really changes. You could be not ranked and be ranked first in the country, and nothing matters. You still start off 0-0.
Do the players think that way? I know coaches do, but 18 to 22-year-olds think differently than those of our age.
I think more than anything, you got to manage expectations. And if you set the bar high every year that, hey, we're here to win our league, we're here to go to a Final Four, try to win a national championship, until you can do some of those things. Obviously, we've won some Big Ten championships. We got to a Final Four 2 years ago. So I think it's realistic. I think it's hard to pound that drum. A lot of coaches do that from recruiting, but if you haven't already done it with those players that are there and had a lot of success. We have a lot of returners. We have a lot of experience. We've added some good newcomers. So we feel good about our situation, but we still got to go out and earn it.
Among those guys returning, you have a starting backcourt that's been to all those games that you just talked about, that's coming back for a fourth year. You know exactly what to expect. How do you describe what a luxury that is for a coaching staff, especially to have those players being the guys that are going to have the ball in their hands the majority of the time?
Right. Well, a player's, coach team is the best team. And a lot of times when you have a lot of talent, but you don't have a lot of talent of having that success together, it's just different. For us, we have a lot of guys that have played together when you throw Trey KaufmanRen in that mix. And so for us, that's key. We feel like we got the best point guard in the country. We feel like we got the best shooter in the country in Braden and Fletch. And so to have those guys that have started so many games together, that are familiar, that understand, now you want that, that leadership. They've gotten better every year in their leadership. They've gotten better in other areas. Now this is, time for them to have the best years of their career and then hopefully have the best finish of their careers.
I thought it was interesting that before the year started last year, there were people already saying, well, this will be the year that Braden Smith isn't able to do all the things that he did when Zach was there, because more is going to be on his shoulders in terms of scoring. He's going to have to shoot the ball more. He was better than he's ever been in that area and still just as good in all the other areas. So what, to you, watching him every day, was the most impressive thing he did last year?
Yeah, I think, anytime, Fletch is, has the best three-point field goal percentage of any person returning in college basketball. Trey KaufmanRen made the most field goals. Obviously, both of those guys, can score the basketball, but also Braden's ability to draw so much attention, helps them also. So I think just that that combination, and then understanding it's not just getting the ball to Zach in a certain position, it's now getting the ball to, to Trey in a certain position, getting the ball to Fletch in a certain position. And so he understands all that. And so it's just kind of, tuning in to what's best for us, but also for Braden, it's looking to score. I think that's somewhere where he can even make more improvements and be more consistent there. To just keep being on the hunt and keep looking to score, because he just naturally is such a great passer.
I thought it was great to see Trey get some attention last year and some praise for the player that he's become. And yet nationally, he still didn't get a lot of attention. And if you look at his numbers at his position compared to any other player nationally, he holds muster with anybody. Why do you think he does fly a little bit under the radar?
Yeah, I think it's no different than Braden. I think anytime you play with a great player like Zach Edey, the guys that have done the work also don't get quite the credit because Zach was so good. Now Trey doesn't get quite the credit because Fletch and Braden are the two guys that came in right away and started. And so like now he had to play off of Zach Edey. We would play Mason Gillis sometimes also. And so like now he just doesn't quite have the name, but everybody in our program knew how good Trey KaufmanRen was. They knew he could score. We told him from day one, like, this guy's going to be an all-conference guy. You know, Zach will get you off the grid a little bit just because he's so dominant, and we needed that spacing with him. With Trey, that's different. You know, we did a lot of pocket passes, a lot of short rolls. You know, he's a great decision maker, but now he's got a name, and now he can really, really establish himself. But the way to establish yourself and the way to kind of separate from everybody is by winning. And I think that's what those guys have all done. Like, you can talk numbers, you can talk all the things that we've discussed, but at the end of the day, who wins the most?
And who stays, Matt? I mean, in today's day and age, that's a legitimate question for every coach. And you know, all the guys that we've already talked about had opportunities, perhaps more money at other places. Obviously, that's not something we know the specifics about. But to my knowledge, none of them even considered a departure. What does that say about your program? How proud are you of that fact?
It's kind of a backhanded compliment, because you should be wanting to pay players to win, right? And we've won. And we've won at a high rate, and it's because of our players. And I think that's something for us where all of our guys have sacrificed, whether it was incoming guys, whether it's return. If you have a bunch of good players, it's hard to get them to their value, especially on the free market. So all of our guys' sacrifices, all of them could have made more money other places. Now their numbers are still good, and our total number is really good. But at the end of the day, like, now that's their legacy. You know, their Purdue education, you know, their Big Ten championships, hopefully another Final Four run, you know, and now it's something where they can come back to Purdue at all time, have their jerseys in the rafters and things of that nature, and that's pretty cool. And you want to put yourself in the best position from a development standpoint, from a professional basketball standpoint. Everybody wants to be a pro, and don't get away from that also. And if you're really that, and that's where it is, that's where your real money is. But all of these guys sacrifice for us, and you know, obviously we're excited about that.
And I know as a coach, you have to adapt, especially today, every day, not just every year, every day, the job that you're in changes. But I imagine that 10 or 15 years ago, you never thought that you'd be an accountant as well as a basketball coach as well, an actuary trying to figure out all these numbers. How different is it?
Yeah, it's real different. And like a lot of times in coaching, you know how to navigate things through your experiences. And then when something is so new, but if you're just honest about things, I think the games that go into it, like, you know, I never like try to recruit somebody off somebody else's team, but yet we have people that try to recruit our guys. And then like they see you on the road, or they text you, and they do whatever, then they act like they're, you know, your friends and everything. And I think that's the one thing that you've got to be able to do. You got to be honest with your players, but you also got to be honest with your peers, no matter what happens, you know, to you, because it's not something that's just happening to me or happening to Purdue basketball. It's happened to a lot of people, but you can't become one of those people. You know, you still have to set the example for your guys to be straightforward and just compete and worry about the things that you can control.
And I know that there are some loose rules and regulations in place, but a little bit of it is the Wild West right now.
Yes.
So while we all agree that the players should benefit from their effort and what they bring to the schools, what can we do, or where can we at least start to make this a little bit more of an even playing field? Well,
the one thing is like just the opportunities that they have, and obviously everybody wants to talk finances, but it's still like those opportunities, and 99% of the guys, you know, aren't pros. So you don't want to devalue education first and foremost. You know, you're going to be a former player for 40 to 50 years. And like, you got to keep perspective of that. Now, if you're taking your money and then you're investing your money and you're starting your company and you're like, and that's your base and that's what you're going to get, and you're not a pro, like, I think a lot of people understand that. But if you're making moves for money, then you're blowing money, like, you're an absolute fool. You know, like be smart about what you're doing, but be smart about your future. Like, be smart about education, be smart about putting yourself in better situations for better opportunities, so now you can have a better life. You know, that's what it's about. So just trying to send that message to each and every one of our guys so they understand the big picture.
As we stay kind of on the big picture and off specific areas of the court, we look at the NCAA tournament. The debate to expand beyond 68 continues. Where do you stand in that conversation?
Yeah, I'd like to be in a room with the people that want it, just to hear the whys, and then how kind of the sausage is made too, like how you're going to do it with the games, like how you're going to break it down in like that first weekend, or if you're going to have more weekends, more starts like we do in Dayton on Tuesday and Wednesday, or things of that nature. So I think that's the one thing that I've gotten from being on the men's basketball oversight committee and all these committees is you get to your opinion after listening to everybody else's. I think that's so important. My knee-jerk reaction is, why mess with something that's working? That's how I feel, but I still want to listen to. They say, well, more people need more opportunities. You still have a line no matter what you do. You have a line, and so like you say, hey, we're going to get in 8 more schools. Well, you're still going to have 3 to 4 schools that are like, hey, we should have been in. Like, what about us? You're just going to keep going with that theory, and so I think it's at the right spot and everything. But if it's better for college basketball, you have to stop and listen to others.